I'm going to walk around the shop here a little bit and just point some things out, but let this be the intro to the shop update. As you can see, the fan clutch is still sitting on the thing. I haven't resolved that yet because it's early in the week, and I haven't gotten to the point of being able to find out if I can get one of them RBRT Allen things to stick in there to see if I can get that thing out or not. One of the things I do want to point out is that insulation got fixed up on the walls. So we're going to do just a little walk around here, and let me talk about some things. Everything that I do is kind of a learning experience. So some of the things that I'm doing with the international fixing things leads me to think of things that maybe I want to change on the haul truck, or different ways that I want to approach things on the haul truck. There's nothing in particular. It could be the slightest thing. So the point of this whole thing is everything is kind of a learning experience. You work on one thing and maybe it doesn't relate precisely to something else that you're doing, but it leads you to think about what other possible options, or other possible ways, or other possible things that you may be using. So I was working on the truck last night and yesterday afternoon, actually, and I told you about my hitch thing that goes on the forklift truck. Well, the kid that had that trailer, that the hitch adapter got bent a little bit. So I had gone down and talked to him about it because he wasn't there when I moved that trailer. Sorry, you got interrupted here. Anyways, what I was talking about is I was in the middle of working on the truck yesterday, getting the drum back on and torquing everything down. And I previously talked to the kid about that trailer hitch. Again, he wasn't in there, the girl was there, and I moved it for her so she could get another car in there to detail. But what he brought, I had talked to him previously about it and told him, and he brought it up here. Well, he wanted a torch. He had another one of his friends down there, and they were thinking about heating it up and bending it back a little bit. But I took the torch down to him, but I told him that really that he probably shouldn't put heat on that thing. Well, it turned out he brought it back up here. We got it off, and he brought it up here, and I put it in the press, and we got it straightened out. But it was kind of a fiasco. I just thought it was a regular receiver that was in that trailer, but apparently they put different things, and it only kind of makes sense. They put different things on boat trailers because they're submerged, and maybe they get away from electric brakes, but this receiver had like a hydraulic cylinder in the inside of it, and apparently as you apply the brakes, the force of the trailer being pushed into the ball activates this hydraulic cylinder, which in turn activates cables that activate the brakes on the trailer. So I had never known that, and again, you learn things from just mundane, everyday things that you sometimes may never give you be used again in your life, but it's always in the back of your mind. Anyways, yeah, I guess the first segment is we're going to jump into that hitch thing, and I didn't get into it right away because I kind of, you're going to see it in sequence. I started working on it, then pulled off of it and started working on the truck. So let's jump into it. Enough being said for the introduction. In my last shop update, I told you about this hitch adapter that goes onto the forklift that I use for moving my trailers and stuff, and how it got bent up. Well, I'm over here to the welding table this morning, and what I did is I dragged out the Porter Power. Originally, I kind of told you that I would probably just heat this up and bend it down and weld a plate over it. Well, this part is bent down. And I would, before I weld another plate over it, I'd like to kind of straighten it out a little bit. So what I did is I put the Porter Power, and it's a wedge-shaped Porter Power in there. I've got it setting up on blocks of steel and a block of steel on top of it. I've got a little pressure on it. What I'm going to do is just heat this up with a torch, try and apply pressure, and just try and raise this back up again. So when I weld the plate on it, there's more contact surface with this thing. It isn't bent down like that. And on the other side, I'll just heat it up and hammer that down. But I'll bring it back and show it to you. No sense letting that heat go to waste. Here's a piece of plate that I'm probably going to put over it. What I'm going to do is I'll enlarge. I'm just going to take the cutting torch and enlarge that hole. And then I'll drill a hole through this piece of plate, center that hole up with this hole, and weld it on afterwards. Over here at the back of the truck, and as you can see, it's universal joints. These are universal joints off of a friend of mine's truck. It's a 13 Ram Cummins 4-wheel drive. Uses it for snow plowing. Because he uses it for snow plowing is why he probably goes through U-joints so fast. He probably changes them every other year. Now these, he didn't grease them, and not that that has anything to do with what I'm about to explain to you, but these things were extremely hard to get out of it. Now, unlike a typical U-joint, the retaining ring isn't in the outer part of it, it's on the inside of it. And what we did is press the old one out in the press, in the hydraulic press. But when it popped, the first one popped, it was very violent. I had a lot of pressure on it, and it was very violent. blew everything out of the press when it went. So when we went to put it back together again, we noticed that it actually bent. The force of pressing this down through had actually bent one of these pawls inwards a little bit. Not a lot, just a very little. The retaining ring, and that's the retaining ring that the the retaining ring that it goes into to hold it, was exposed enough to get the ring started on part of it, but on the top part, it was bent in a little bit and covering up that land where the clip goes over. So what we did is, it's cast iron. What I did is took it over to the welding bench, and I've got a Porta-Power, one of those spread jaws on it. We just put that spread jaw in there, put a little bit of pressure on it, put a little bit of heat. It only had to go probably less than 1/16 of an inch, be spread apart. So, but again, it was because this thing was so rusted or corroded into that thing that there was so much pressure against it. When we pressed it out, it released and it just bent it in a little bit. But hopefully we've got it. We'll get the other two done today. But that will kind of lead me into the next phase of the truck. So let me take you and I'll start showing you putting the drum stuff back together on the truck. Okay, so before I show you putting the drums back together on the truck, as you probably noticed, as I just showed you the U-joints, the truck was in the shop backwards, and now I'm showing you the mill, and the fan clutch isn't attached to the bed of the mill anymore. What I did is took that fan clutch off of the mill and put it back on the truck, and I made a video of me putting it back on the truck, but for some reason I can't open that video. It's there in the computer, but it will not open anymore. It won't open with any of the programs that I have. Okay, so anyways, I got interrupted again. Somebody came in and needed to borrow something of mine. So as you see, the fan clutch is gone off of the bed of the mill. Actually, I had to put a vise on way after the fan clutch was gone off of here, because a guy wanted me to drill some stainless steel angle iron for him yesterday. But I'll take you over to the truck and show you the fan clutch on it. Again, I made an extensive video on reinstalling the fan clutch on it and why I needed to do it, because of the battery situation and stuff like that with the truck. So let me take you over to the truck and I'll just show you the fan clutch. So as you can see through my little peekaboo hole between the air from the turbo, after the intercooler, the air going back into the manifold and my radiator hose, you can see back in there the fan clutch is back on. And again, I don't know why the computer won't let me open that file back up again. I deleted it off of the camera, and actually, but before I deleted it off of the camera, I opened it a couple of times, and now it won't let me reopen it for some reason. So regardless of the point, the fan clutch is back on because I need to keep that alternator charging the batteries. and that's the only reason that I have the fan clutch back on there. I don't trust the batteries. It could, because to get the truck out of the shop, I have to go out into the street and then down the street to get to the parking area. So I don't want to get stuck in the middle of the street when the truck dies. So hence putting the fan clutch back on so the alternator works. Guess you just have to hold your mouth right. I've got to go find what the torque spec is on this. So the torque on these things apparently are 185 pounds. I'm going to do it in 2 stages. I'm going to do 120 pounds first. Okay, and now I'm going to switch it to 185. The shield's in the back of the truck, or back of the One of the things that I did yesterday was take these tires, the 2 tires that I had taken off of the front axle to replace the seal and the brakes, bearings, stuff like that on it. This was the inside tire, and it was caked with dirt it was caked with dirt because there was a bunch of axle oil or gear oil that had come out of that seal and gotten on the inside of this rim, and it had caked it. And the outside of the tire was also stained. When I say the outside of the tire, it would be the inside edge. So I took these two tires out and just power washed them off as best I could so that I would get that residue off of there, most of the grease and stuff off of it. I mean, I know that it still looks dirty, but at least it's not fresh oil or that oil stain on it. These tires are probably going to have to be replaced, but for the sake of ever running into somebody getting a DOT inspection or something like that, at least there isn't fresh oil on it. Also, in the unlikely chance, or hopefully the unlikely chance, that seal starts leaking again, at least I know that it's leaking and it wasn't old oil. But I just wanted to mention that to you. Okay, so I came in the shop today, and what I did is drill out this plate to receive that ball. Then I took the cutting torch and notched out a little bit around that existing thing, welded it on, and I just threw a little bit of spray paint over it. Not really sure even why I did that. I mean, none of the rest of it has any paint on it. But anyways, that's done. I didn't show any of it. I kind of got tied up with some things, and I actually forgot to drag the camera out to show it. But anyways, I'll bring you back. We'll jump into something else here. What I did is I had to run out to get a couple of quarts of gear oil. It's a synthetic gear oil to put in that rear end where I replaced the seal on it. It was low. I crawled underneath it and checked both of them, but that one where the seal was bad on it was low. The other one is up there. So I put 2 quarts of gear oil into it, the synthetic gear oil into it, just to get it off. What I'm going to do now is crawl underneath it and get information off of the transmission. Maybe serial number, try and find the serial number, model number off of the transmission. There is a PTO off of that transmission, so I'm going to try and get the information off of that. I am still having issues with shifting this. I can upshift it, but I cannot downshift it. There is, I have tried double clutching it, I've tried floating it, I've tried everything. It will not downshift. So I'm kind of starting to wonder if it doesn't have something to do with the PTO on the transmission, because the clutch seems to work. I'm not going to say fine, but the clutch works on upshifting. So let me explore some on that. Now, as you will probably notice, the truck is turned around, so that means that I took it out. I did take the fan clutch and put it back on the engine so that I could drive it, so that I could get it out of the shop, park it outside, use the shop for some other things. I did an extensive video on that. I was going to shorten it or fast forward it through it, putting the fan clutch back on the engine. I downloaded it off of the I downloaded it off of the camera onto the thing, viewed it a couple of times. I had an issue with it apparently because of the size of the file. What I did is just took the old Hero GoPro and set it up on the tripod and let it run for a long time. Again, I was just going to fast forward it. I had an issue downloading it. I finally got it downloaded. I viewed it a couple of times. And turned the computer off and came back today, and the damn file will not open. It's there, it just won't open. You get this error message, and I'm not really sure what's going on with it. So I don't think it's going to be able to be seen, but anyways, because the truck is turned around, I had taken it out yesterday. After putting that fan clutch back on and left it parked outside overnight, then came in this morning because I wanted to do that, check that gear oil and put it back in because I knew it would probably be low. So what I had done is shoveled the snow off of the bed of it so that as I got underneath it, it wasn't raining on me as the snow melted off of the bed. I just shoveled it off and threw it onto the floor, on the floor grating, so that it would, again, I could get under there without being underneath like a waterfall. Again, I'm going to get the information off of the transmission and that PTO. And then I've got to take it outside because I think my grandson wants to get his truck in here on the lift tonight. So, but I'll bring you back and let you know what the outcome of everything is. Okay, so I've told you in the past that I was having issues with the transmission. What somebody suggested I do is they were thinking maybe it's the synchronizers in the transmission are gone, thus not allowing me to downshift. So what they said to do was pull some of the oil out of the bottom of the transmission and see if we've got brass copper tailings in oil that would indicate that the synchros have been ground out. But so here is a cup. I pulled some of the oil out of it, and I'm going to let it set to see if it settles out to be copper brass tailings in the bottom of it. Okay, I'm going to bring you over to the transmission oil, and what I did is took it out of the original container that I had and ran it through a paint strainer or paint filter. And I'm not really sure if you're going to be able to see this or not. Let me see if I can point it out to you. But that right there at the end of the thing is copper brass type of filings, and the same way with down here, and it looks like in the bottom of it there is some copper brass filings also. I'm going to say the synchronizers are shot in the transmission, and that's probably why it's happening, but I'll bring you back and let you know as I find out more. So this panel that runs along here, kind of like the rocker panel of a car, but this panel runs along here. There's this plug in here, a 110 plug, and what it does is it feeds a block heater on the engine. So in the wintertime you can plug an extension cord into there and do it. There's a couple of reasons I had this panel off. I wanted to look at this plug and see how it was wired, because I'm thinking about tying into it and maybe putting a trickle charger in the battery box so that it could feed the batteries when the thing is plugged in. So like in the winter time, if I plug it in to keep the block warm, or I'm going to be going on a haul with this thing in the wintertime, I can plug it in like the night before, and it'll warm the block, but it'll also keep the batteries charged up. The other reason I kind of had that thing off is I was kind of thinking about adding lights to along there. It's just a void space behind there. Just a thought that's running through my head. I'm not sure whether I'm would add lights to the side of it so that they're visible, or kind of add lights there. There's like a lip down here that's probably 2.5 inches wide, and they could go in there, so it would, like, downcast lighting. Just a thought, though. So these are those RBRT bits that I got. They're the ones that are supposed to be able to remove stuff that is stripped out. So I haven't tried it yet. Again, the truck is in the shop, but I've got to take it out because there's some other things that have got to happen in here. My grandson's we've got a car that's got to come in, or my grandson's going to have a car. One of his friends bring his car in and fix his brakes on it. His brakes locked up for some reason, so he's going to bring it in here and put it in the shop and fix that, and then take a look at his truck and the clutch issue with it. So, but I do have those bits. So I will be pulling that fan clutch back off at some time again and trying to get it free using these things. But there's also a good possibility that I'm going to be taking a look at that transmission. What I've got to do is I'm going to have to crawl under there and see if I can get because there's different size bell housings for different size transmissions. They're a circular type of bowled up pattern on it, and there's different sizes to it. So I've got to kind of see so that I know in the back of my head whether the 10-speed out of the haul truck will fit in there. Because if it is the transmission is bad and the synchros are bad, I'll probably rebuild it, but I don't want to pull it out and rebuild it tying up the shop for all of that time while it's getting rebuilt. What I would do is, if it is the transmission, what I would do is pull the transmission out of the haul truck, the 10-speed, and put it in there, which I think would be more suitable for my intended purpose of this truck than that 8 low. It would give me better over-the-road driving through or turnpike driving type of speeds. It would be better suited for it with a 10-speed transmission, especially because the 10-speed transmission in the haul truck is an overdrive transmission, and the 10th gear is actually got a 0.73 to 1 ratio on it, which would be very suitable given the tire sizes on this. I had figured out through gear ratios and tire size and everything, I had figured out that with that overdrive transmission and these tires, which are the same size tires that are on the International, at 70 miles an hour, I would be cruising at around 1,600 RPMs. So the same would hold true with this truck, because same size tires, same rear axle ratio in this as there is in this 390. But anyways, I'll bring you back. So as you can see, the creepers over there, I went in and measured the bell housing on the International, and measured the bell housing for this, and they're not the same. So I couldn't pull this transmission out and adapt it directly into the International because, again, the bell housing is not the same. I would have to find a different bell housing that would adapt the 10-speed transmission to the bolt pattern on the back of the Cummins engine in the International. But anyways, such is life. The one thing is as you can see, I pulled the truck out, but when I pulled the truck out, I again tried to get the transmission to downshift, and I was successful at it. Now, it's kind of like a hit and miss type of thing, but maybe I can figure out what's going on more precisely. Maybe it is a clutch adjustment. I got the transmission to downshift not by using the clutch, but by floating it. I also was able to upshift by floating it. But the issue with this whole thing is, and this may vary from state to state, I have been told in New York State, if you take a road test with a standard transmission in a truck, a bigger truck, you're not allowed to float. You have to use a double clutch procedure when you're taking the road test. So I've got to work with the truck some more and kind of adjust that clutch and find out what's going on, and if I can adjust it so that I can double clutch it to downshift or upshift. But anyways, I'll bring you back. Hit that like button, guys. Give me a thumbs up. Leave a comment. Subscribe.